In English, we use relative clauses to give extra information about a person or thing, sort of like adjectives. We do this to consolidate information so that we don't have to use more than one sentence. For example, I could say, I'm looking for someone. They need to be able to teach me English grammar. Or I could say, I'm looking for someone who can teach me English grammar. Here's another example. I could say, I bake sourdough bread. My sourdough bread makes people feel like they're home. Or I could say, I bake sourdough bread that makes people feel at home. Relative clauses can be categorized as either restrictive, sometimes referred to as defining, or non-restrictive, sometimes referred to as non-defining. Restrictive or defining relative clauses give the reader or listener essential information. This information defines the person, place, or thing that we are describing, and if we remove it from the sentence, the listener or reader will lose crucial information. For example, if I said, in order to stay healthy, we need to eat foods that contain plenty of nutrients. This would be essential information. This would be a restrictive or defining relative clause. If I removed the relative clause and simply said, in order to stay healthy, we need to eat foods, I would no longer be giving you the vital information telling you what kinds of foods we need to eat in order to stay healthy. I could also rearrange things and put the relative clause in the middle of the sentence. We need to eat foods that contain plenty of nutrients in order to stay healthy. It's important to remember that when we have a restrictive relative clause in the middle of a sentence, we don't use any commas. When forming restrictive clauses in American English, we can use who or that. We use who for people, and we use that for people or things. Cats that cuddle are wonderful. I can't stand people who don't put away their shopping carts. She's the girl that broke my heart. British speakers also use which for things, but in American English we only use which for non-restrictive clauses. The relative pronoun can be the subject of the relative clause in sentences like, I like cats that cuddle, or she has a son who can make things disappear. Is that the unicorn onesie that made you famous? In all of these examples, the relative clause comes at the end of the sentence, but we could also switch things around and put the relative clause in the middle of the sentence. Cats that cuddle are the best. The boy that makes things disappear has a very attractive mother. The unicorn onesie that made me famous needs to be washed. The relative pronoun can also be the object of the relative clause. It's important to know when this is happening because we have the option of omitting or not using the relative pronoun in these cases. Let me show you. I could say, I found the ice cream that I want, or I could say, I found the ice cream I want. I can get rid of that, the relative pronoun. Here's some more examples. Where is the woman that I love? Or, where is the woman I love? That's the cat that she wrote a book about. Or, that's the cat she wrote a book about. As before, we can also switch things around and put these clauses in the middle of the sentence. The woman I love is right there. The ice cream I want is too expensive. The cat she wrote a book about is very cute. Non-restrictive clauses, however, do not provide essential information. We can remove these clauses and the listener or reader will not lose any vital information. For example, if I said, my brother, who's also bald, is coming over for dinner tonight. I could remove who's also bald, and we wouldn't lose any essential or vital information. The fact that he's also bald has nothing to do with the main point of the sentence. When forming non-restrictive clauses in American or British English, we can use who or which. We use who for people and which for things. My buddy Richie, who produces music, said I can stay in his spare bedroom for the weekend. That's a spider, which most people don't like. My cat, who eats everything, won't eat her food today. Now I know what you're thinking. Robert, your cat is not a person. Why did you use who? Well, the thing is, native speakers will often give their pets the honor of the pronoun who. So I gave my cat the honor. That was my prerogative. Let's talk about a couple of important differences to note when forming these clauses. First of all, as I mentioned, when we form a non-restrictive clause, we do need to separate it with commas. Next, while the relative pronoun can again be either the subject or the object, we can never omit it from the sentence. So we would never say something like, "That's a spider most people don't like." We can use whose in a relative clause as well. Whose is always the subject of the relative clause, and it can't be dropped. It replaces a possessive. I can see a man whose head shines like a bowling ball. We can also replace relative pronouns with the question words where, when, and why. Instead of saying, "I'll never forget the time that I threw up in front of my kindergarten class," we could say, "I'll never forget the time when I threw up in front of my kindergarten class." Instead of saying, "The house that I grew up in is haunted," we could say, "The house where I grew up is haunted." Instead of saying, "Relative clauses are the reason that I can't learn English," we could say, "Relative clauses are the reason why I can't learn English." Now for practice, answer this question. What are you looking for? Answer in the comments using a relative clause. For example, my answer is, I'm looking for someone who can teach me to cook the perfect egg. And if you really want to practice your skills, I'm making another video of relative clause exercises so you can test yourself. Once I finish that video, I'll put a link right here for you. Why are you still here? You need to practice. Click on this video.